Hey everyone, this is Amber Key, and you're listening to a Bright Idea podcast, a show where I sit down with entrepreneurs to discuss the aha moments that launch their businesses. This week, I'm joined by Jonathan Marks, founder of CDL Driving Academy, one of the most recognized CDL training schools in the country, with over 150,000 subscribers on YouTube and a multi-seven-figure business that he built from the ground up. Jonathan recently launched a business consulting firm specifically to help small business owners doing $250,000 and up in annual revenue scaling up to $1 million in sales, $1 million in profit, and structure their companies to scale and sell. He's passionate about sharing the exact systems, hiring frameworks, and mindset shifts that help everyday entrepreneurs break free from the operating track and actually grow a business that runs and sells without them. In this conversation, Jonathan and I speak about his early years from starting his first business as a college athlete to building a successful truck driving company. Then we get into the importance of focusing on cash flow, the value of personal development, and innovative marketing strategies like leveraging YouTube to growing his business. If you're feeling lost as an entrepreneur, this is an episode you want to tune in for because Jonathan emphasizes the significance of clarity and goals and the mindset needed to overcome challenges in business. He also outlines his framework that he is teaching several entrepreneurs of 3 essential business buckets: marketing, sales, and operations, and provides insights into how aspiring entrepreneurs can achieve success. Before we dive in, if you love what we're doing here at a Bright Idea podcast, help us keep going. You can subscribe to this show to get notifications when new episodes drop. If you like what you hear, share the episode with someone who needs a little inspiration. And if you'd like to support the show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at a Bright Idea podcast. Lastly, if you're a business owner or a brand looking to connect with our growing audience, we'd love to collaborate with you. You can sponsor an ad within one of our episodes or sponsor an entire episode. Just reach out to us to learn more. Now let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Jonathan Marks, founder of CDL Driving Academy. Okay, I'm here with Jonathan Marks of Driving Academy. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining a Bright Idea today. How are you?
I'm amazing. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. I am really looking forward to our conversation because you have owned several businesses and now you are helping people to people who are interested in starting businesses, but not only that, growing businesses, scaling them. And so I not only am excited to hear your journey, your path to how you got to where you are, but really what advice you can give to our listeners today and also me on this episode. So I'm just really grateful that you're here.
I'm happy to be here. You're doing a lot of great things. You're inspiring a lot of people, so can't wait to help.
Thank you. Before we get started, I want people that are listening or watching this episode to get to know you a little more behind your company. And so I would hope that you would like to play this game with me called Rapid Fire.
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, let's get into it. So let's see. Are you early mornings or late nights?
Neither. I'd rather do late nights, but I like sleeping in. I like sleeping in a little bit, but late for me, my wife would say I don't like sleeping in. To me, it's like 9 o'clock is late, waking up late for me. But I'm not a 5 a.m. club kind of guy either.
Okay, awesome. I'm a 5 a.m. person. I need to be up and it's not even that I want to be up at 5. It's just my body is like naturally up, but I am one of those people that's like out by 9.
Interesting.
So yeah. Okay. What's your go-to stress reliever?
Breathing. I think it's overrated. A lot of people forget that, but it's like just taking a moment to actually take a breath in and out. And actually the science behind it is actually pretty fun, where the scientists have actually realized the magic number is 6. So if you breathe in and out 6 times, not 5, not 7, but 6 times in and out nice and deep while holding breath at each step, your stress will actually drop like this because all the hormones in your body start to change because changing your physiology.
Wow. I find that so interesting. I think that breathing is a technique that seems so simple. And then every time I try it, I'm like, I can't get past like 3. I'm like, okay, why am I not coming down? My nerves are like all the way up here. So you said the magic number is 6.
6, yeah. So just
Deep
get past that
breaths.
3.
Okay.
And really, it's because most people are like, okay, I'm just going to do this breathing thing, but their focus is still on the stress, and
Yeah.
so it's hard to get out of that state itself. But if you
Okay.
put six in your mind, you should feel a big difference.
Okay, next time I feel stressed, which is very often, I'm gonna text you and be like, 6 worked. It was the magic number 6, so stick to it. If you weren't an entrepreneur, what would you be doing?
Good question. If I was not an entrepreneur, I'd probably be working in a company, finding out how to add value, probably something in sales as an employee. Um, I just like adding value, helping people out. And I think like the more value add to whatever organization you're part of, the more success you'll be.
It's awesome. All right, a few more questions. What's the worst business advice you've ever heard?
The worst business advice I've ever heard. It's probably going to be um, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Why?
A lot of people think that diversification is the most important thing, especially in business. And they're hearing this advice from guys who've already won the game, right? So when you actually look at how these big guys have won the game, like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, even Mark Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, whoever you like out there, they built their wealth in very concentrated areas, right? So they went all in specifically on business. They went all in on those things until they started to build their wealth. Now, going all in does not guarantee you success,
Mm,
but what it does do, it guarantees you growth and it guarantees that you're learning. The hardest thing for entrepreneurs to actually do, or if they do want to grow, is kind of diversify into 5 different businesses. Because now all of a sudden they're like, hey, maybe one of these things are going to work. All you're really doing is still working on luck. And business is not luck as long as you know exactly what to do, when to do it. And you can actually use those same skills on any type of business. So use business as a training tool, go all in on one, increase your wealth. And then once you get wealthy, diversification is a great tool to use to keep and preserve your wealth. But most people never actually get to the point where they are actually able to diversify.
that's such good advice, and I feel like that really plays into what you've built here, which we'll get into in a minute, but I that was a huge takeaway, so I hope the people that are listening, really took notes. Um, what's one KPI that every business owner should track? I know that's an interesting question, but I'm
So
curious.
I believe business is the main purpose of any business is to generate free cash flow. So if you don't know accounting terms, right? Most people, if people who know accounting, there's three kind of financial statements that every business owner should know. There's going to be the profit and loss, which tells you how much money you make and your expenses. And what's left over is your profit. It's going to be your balance sheet, which tells you all the things you own, which is your assets,
Mhm.
everything that you owe, which is your liability, and then something called owner's equity, which is the last piece of that. And then there's going to be a statement of cash flows, right? And that's actually one of the most important statements in the entire financial world. Most people have no idea what I'm even talking about. But
Mhm.
in simple terms, profit is a myth, it's a theory. How much cash your actual business generates is completely different. And that's the most important thing. Because I've known businesses and I have friends who've shown that they had $1 million in profit, but at the end of the year, they had zero cash in their bank account. Now, all of a
Okay.
sudden, they had to pay on taxes on $1 million in profit, but they had to go get a loan to try to pay those taxes off. So,
Mm-mm.
understanding that the most important KPI in any business is how much free cash flow you're actually generating, which means how much money you're actually collecting after you spend everything that you can on expenses on the business itself. What cash is actually left over for you to actually live on and reinvest?
That's awesome. And then do you get into that in what you do, helping businesses grow and scale?
Yeah, so pretty much our goal here on the new business that I started was called JM Growth Co. And here we like to make business growth simple, right? So I believe a lot of people overcomplicate the game of business way too much. And when people are kind of confused, they take zero action. Now, no matter what business that you're in, the one thing that you have to do is take action. But most people don't know what is the right action to take. And there's many reasons why they won't take the right action, but our goal is to get businesses to the 3 levels of success. Level one, $1 million in sales. Level two, $1 million in profit. And level three, sell and scale their business if that's what they want to do, right? So part of that is I kind of make business super, super simple. Every single business that you're in, you have three different buckets of activities. You're going to have marketing activities, which is how do you get more leads into the system? You're going to have sales activities, which is how do you convert those leads into actual paying customers so you can collect cash. And then there's going to be operations. So under operations, you're going to have customer operations. How do you handle the customers? Employee operations is how do you handle your employees? And then there's going to be data operations, which is where the finance function that we talked about will lie underneath there, right? So if you actually focus on building the business the right way with understanding where you want to move forward with, it makes things so much more simple.
I love that. And I can't wait to get into that. I have two more questions for rapid fire before we jump into the rest of this episode. But if you had to start over with just $1,000, what business would you launch today?
With $1,000. So what I would actually do with $1,000, I would keep it. I would find a business owner that's close to me that sells a product that's above $2,000 or so, probably in a marketing realm. Somebody who understands the marketing side, somebody who understands like social media marketing, then I'd just be the best sales guy around. So I can start off with $0. I actually was educating somebody who actually interviewed for one of my companies, and I taught him this exact thing and how to become a millionaire within the next 12 months without investing any money in any business, right? So he was good at social media. He understood other people who were good at social media. So you have like these freelancers out there that are good at like posting stuff and kind of creating videos or video editors. But the thing that they hate is actually going and getting business development. So all you do is you create three product lines, a silver package, a gold package, and a platinum package type of thing. And you have different price points. My recommendation, the minimum price point should be $1,000 a month. And all your job is now to do, okay, for $1,000 a month, always add more value than you're taking. So what can an actual business owner get for $1,000 a month when it comes to social media? You can get 2 posts a week, 3 posts a week, whatever it is. And now your job is just knock on doors. Hey, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, I saw your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it's all dead. I can help you get more leads. In today's day and age, you have to make sure that you're become awareness. I have a whole team of people behind me. And then you convince them, do you want option A, option B, option C? Okay, I want to go for option A. Great. Now your job is not to go and do option A. That's where a lot of people get messed up. Your job is now to build up this relationship of people who are dying for work on the freelance market.
Right.
Manage them and then start getting more business. And think about it. If you talk to 50 people a day, right? At that point, say you convert 5 of them, 10% of the people that you talk to a day. And you're actually having 50 conversations, pretty easy to convert 5. Even if you convert 2, all you need to actually get started to make $1 million a year in sales is $83,333 a month, which means if you convert 2 people a day, in 40 days, you can have 80 clients, and now you have $1 million business starting off with 0 money.
Genius. I hope that people took notes on that. Like, did you guys hear that? That was a good answer. Okay, my last one, and then we're really getting into this. What's next on your bucket list outside of your business?
My big goal that I'm going after is a private plane. That's the next thing.
Really? And where are you going to fly to first?
I'm Portuguese, so I go to Portugal a few times a year. So flying overseas would be cool. But I also spend a lot of time in Florida, and I like to travel all over. And as the business grows, I'm going to be traveling more. And having a private plane has always been one of my goals. It's something I write down every single day.
I love that. Wait, I love that. And I'm actually going to Portugal for the second time in November. So after this interview, I will need some recommendations. I want to get into this a little bit. We talked a little bit before this interview just about how you started your first business as a full-time college athlete, running track. And my first question to you, of course, would be like, how did you balance it all? But really, I feel like we have to go a step further and go back a little further on like how you even got to be an entrepreneur. Talk to me a little bit about your family. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial family? And like, how would your parents have described you as a young kid?
Yeah. So both my parents are Portuguese. I'm first generation American. My dad came to this country at 13 years old with nothing. and just worked his butt off, right? My grandfather, on my mother's side, I've seen him waking up every single day at 5 o'clock, going to work construction, and every single day kind of getting things going. So understanding kind of what needed to be done at a young age and just seeing the male figures in my life really kind of put in the work was super impactful for me.
Mm-hmm.
It also taught me a lot about money. So growing up in the immigrant mentality, it's all about saving. It's not about flashy. It's about make sure that you are take care of yourself and nobody else needs to know how much you make type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So growing up, my dad has always been an entrepreneur. He's been planting in me and my brother's minds always like, hey, uh, if you if you become an employee, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it, but you're giving somebody else the option to choose what kind of future that you want. Which means based on whatever job that you get, they're going to determine if your kids go to private school or not. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
determine what kind of vacation you're able to go on, what kind of house you live in, all these things, right? So from a young age, I've always been kind of, hey, I want to be able to control my own future. And being a business owner is one way I've always thought about getting it done. And I always kind of loved the game of business. But to kind of give you a quick story, I think I had like a lemonade stand growing up as a kid. And I wound up saving, I think I was like 12 years old, and I saved $1,400. I was
Wait,
so
off of a
happy
lemonade stand? Like
off of,
just one?
yes, one lemonade stand.
What street did you grow up on? Because I did not. I had plenty of lemonade stands, and it wasn't $1,400. So tell me the story.
I went to like a heavy warehouse industrial spot, and I just
Okay.
stood there for hours and hours and hours on end. So there was a lot of foot traffic there already. So it was definitely location, location, location there.
Yes, that's it.
So $1,400, I had a whole like wagon thing driving, walking it over there and all that. But the first thought, I was so excited. I brought my dad over and said, Dad, I saved $1,400. He goes, great. What does that mean? I said, that means I can make a $1,400 mistake and still be okay. It wasn't so I can go buy this bike. It wasn't any of that stuff. It was that's where money was supposed to kind of be able to protect you to be able to make a mistake so you can kind of start growing and start making a little bit more risk. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like the mindset I've always had growing up. Um, Also, growing up, another thing, my dad had a few businesses, many different types of businesses himself. But again, that immigrant mentality was if you want to make money, you got to work 7 days a week. So
Yeah.
if I wanted to see my dad growing up, I would have to go to work. And that taught me that work ethic from a very, very young age.
Hmm.
I would be good in soccer or track or whatever it is. My dad would never come to any of my games, and and I was like, okay, he's doing it because he loves us. He's working hard for the family, things like that. That's what I felt. But inside, I'm like, when I get to his age, when I get to his stage, I don't want to play the same game. There's
Yeah.
people who own businesses out there that are not slaves to their business. So there's got to be something they know that my dad does not know. So I learned a lot from my dad itself. But I also learned early on one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten is only take advice from people who have the life you want to live, right?
Wow.
So there's a lot of things that my dad taught me, but in order to get to the stage that I wanted to go to, I had to start discovering, hey, who's playing at that level, who's actually living at that life, and what are they doing differently than I am today. Go ahead.
So many people are inspired by their parents, and it sounds like you are as well, but you are talking about like your dad instilled this sort of like hard work ethic, this mentality to be your own boss, take your like find your own path. But you are talking about wanting to live a life that you could enjoy. Who outside of your dad did you see that kind of inspired you to want to live a life that you enjoyed?
Nobody. At a young age, no one. My grandfather was very super conservative, like save, save, save. My father, same type of thing, right? But I was always that dreamer. I was always like, I would be the one to come up with ideas, and everyone would say you're crazy. Like even to this day, the whole airplane idea, I'd bring that up to my grandparents today, and they're like, "Oh, you just want to kill yourself. Why do you want to buy a plane?" So I think that's something that I was born with to be like, I believe that we're actually put on this earth to chase our potential. And the beautiful thing about potential is once you start raising up the level, there's always that next level there. And
Yeah.
once you kind of get to the next level of the rung, you kind of keep pushing yourself to the next level. Because at the end of the day, I've learned this from Tony Robbins. He says that true happiness for humans, there's one universal thing that all humans need, and
Hmm.
that's the feeling of progress. Because when we feel like we're growing, when we feel like we're progressing, that's when we feel like we're actually living.
So What at that age, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I just wanted to be rich. I wanted to be able to do what I wanted whenever I wanted. It was
But
very
doing what job? Like what did you want to do?
I didn't have anything. I just said, okay, I'm going to own a business and I'm going to be rich. Like I was never tied to one individual vehicle or another.
Yeah, you just had dreams. That's
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
I love that. So let's fast forward. You started your first business while, like I mentioned, being a full-time college student athlete. You don't just become a college athlete. That's something you have to kind of work towards. In high school, for me, I started running like later part of elementary school through middle school, high school, and then was able to go to college and run cross country. What was your story, and how did you become a college athlete?
Yeah, so I played soccer pretty much all my life. All high school, all before high school, been a lot of good teams. I was always the fastest guy on the soccer field. And then in high school, freshman year, soccer was only one season. The other season, I wanted to stay active, so they invited me out to the track team. I said, "Yeah, I'll try it out." The first kind of tryouts that we did, I beat everybody, and then the coach was like, "Oh no, you're staying with me." At that point, I just started liking track. I started getting more and more into it. I kept the soccer going as well,
Hmm,
but it wound up being like in college, I was ranked 17th fastest on the East Coast at one point. In high school, I have a bunch of high school records, states. Those are some of the stuff behind me over there.
that's
High
awesome.
school and track records that I have. But the cool thing about track was like it taught me a lot about just life in general. Track sucks sometimes, especially the sprinting.
It's all mental.
Yeah. And it's like being able to run as fast as you can, having your body saying, no, stop, and making sure that your brain overpowers your body to be like, no, I'm going to want you to keep going. I know that there's more out there. Right.
Yeah,
And like there was so many times I threw up after a race, and some of that stuff was not fun. But like I was so proud of myself for actually doing hard things.
yeah.
And as I kind of went on to my journey, I struggled with like self confidence growing up as a kid and things like that. And I started understanding, okay, how do you actually build this whole thing called self confidence? And I actually heard this quote. I forget who I heard it from, but there's two main ways you can build self confidence. Way number one, keep the promises you make to yourself, right? So if you're saying, hey, I'm going to start my diet on Monday, keep that promise or just don't make that promise to yourself. Even the ones that no one else knows. That's every time you break that promise, your self confidence starts to drop. Then number two is actually do hard things. So that means things that actually push you to the next level. Because after you accomplish it, whether you're successful or not, you're going to be super proud of yourself for actually doing those things that are difficult. And what winds up happening, the compounding effect of keeping those promises, even though they're small, and doing hard things, make your life so much easier. And you start loving yourself a lot more because you know anything's possible.
I do think that track really does teach you those lessons of like knowing yourself, self improvement, also the mental state that you have to be in to first of all be a track runner, and also just like how it applies to life, which is a perfect segue into how you were running businesses while being an athlete at the same time. So I remember being a student athlete in college. We had 6 a.m. morning practices, and then I would take my 8 a.m. through 12 p.m. Classes in school, or no, 6 a.m. Practices. And then I would go from 8 a.m. to 12 to go to my classes, eat a lunch, hurry up, go home, maybe take a nap, and then get back on the track at 3 p.m., not finish until 5, and then go to dinner and then study hall. So, like, where, I don't know what your schedule looked like, but where did you fit in running a business?
Yeah. So, freshman year, by the second semester, I opened up my first restaurant. Got a loan to kind of do that. Again, full time student athlete, Division 1 track athlete. So same type of thing. It was, hey, wake up early morning. I think our practice was like 6 a.m. Weight room. Do all the schooling that you had to do. At that point, then go to practice and then run the business. Sometimes I had night classes after that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that my teachers probably don't want you to say is I had a good network, right? So things like homework and things like that, I had a great group of friends who were able to help me out to complete homework. The 8 a.m. classes, especially in math,
Yeah.
I would be falling asleep in these classes. I never skipped a class. It doesn't mean that I was actually awake for every class, but I actually never.
Yeah.
It was just like understanding, okay, where do I balance things out? And it actually really taught me like, okay, where do I actually have to be on site or can I do a lot of things virtual? So it was really good at like micromanaging my time, making sure that I was being efficient as possible. Because on top of that, you still want to live the college experience, right? You still want to go out, you still want to have fun with your friends, you still want to kind of get a girlfriend, start dating, whatever that is, and
Yeah.
trying to mix all that stuff up. It really helps you understand, okay, where do I want to spend my time? Get out of that victim mentality. Anything that you want is possible as long as you actually put in the work.
Yeah. So the business that you were running was a restaurant, correct?
Yeah. So I opened up the restaurant freshman year, like I said. By the time I graduated college, so about 4 years later, I was able to open up a total of 14 with partners,
Mm-hmm.
wound up closing 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned a whole lot in that whole cycle in that 4 year time period, right? Just to kind of give you an example, I was acting as regional manager. And just by driving from restaurant to restaurant at one point, I was doing about 600 miles a week while being a full time student, full time athlete. So it definitely was a lot of a little sleepless nights, as you can say, right? Um, Go
And
ahead.
so you were a regional manager. Was this in partnership with your father, or did you start this restaurant on your own?
Yeah, so my dad wanted to kind of start the business itself. So he opened up the first restaurant. At that point, I got a loan to open up the second one, and I'm just a helper. So, like at that point, I see my dad. This is a guy who wanted to open up a restaurant, but even us growing up, he wanted to make us breakfast. The eggs would be burnt every day, right? Mm,
Yeah.
and his view of business is I have to be an operator. And of course, he didn't really understand what was going on. So, kind of to help out my dad, I was like, okay, let me learn the business and I'll kind of help you out. So, he
Mm,
started getting other partners in other spots. They, similar type of situation. No one really knew what was going on. So, I just kind of dove in. There was an opening there. And I said, okay, let me try to help see what's actually going on. Let's put some systems in place and kind of learn. Uh, there was a lot of growth, a lot of openings. I learned a lot about hiring the right people, educating, onboarding, things like that. And when we closed a lot of the restaurants itself, I learned a lot about cash flow, right? So, like we talked about, if you're showing profit or sales,
hmm.
but you don't have enough cash turning into the actual business itself, it makes it very difficult to keep things open. I remember many weeks where I had $1,000 left in my account and I had a choice. Do I pay the food bill so I can get food next week? Or do I pay my employees?
Mm,
Many, many times my employees got paid a lot more than me. So that whole idea of entrepreneurship, business owners make a lot more money. The
yeah.
average statistics state that an average employee will make more money than any entrepreneur on average, just because of the risk level that the entrepreneur takes. And what actually makes the risk even higher is not having the proper education. This was my first time in a real business, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I was trying to figure everything out on my own, just use pure logic. I was going to college and I remember going to an operations class, business operations, and asking my professor, hey, I have this restaurant. This is kind of like how I do use labor. This is how I use food. Can you kind of help me optimize this? He goes, well, that's not really in the book that we teach. So I don't really know how to help you. And
Yeah.
at that point, I'm like, business and college and theory are two completely separate things, right?
Well, I was going to ask because I remember you mentioning that you went to school for business, and I was while also being a business owner in college, and so I was wondering, was anything that you were learning, were you able to apply that in the real world?
I think the most that I applied was actually Excel classes. So everything about computers and Excel and kind of learning how to do spreadsheets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Statistics class was pretty cool, but like business operations, that was pure theory stuff. Accounting was cool to kind of understand how numbers flowed. But there was one entrepreneurship class that I took, and this one guy, older gentleman, he was Professor Buzza was his name, and we actually built a bond because he knew what I was going through, and he actually wound up giving me 3 credits, and all I had to do was run my business and give him one report per week on what I did in my business, and I didn't have
Hmm.
to show up to class or nothing like that, which is a pretty cool thing. But we were able to interact with each other and kind of go through real world experiences and kind of see how that was all playing out.
And so by the time you graduated, you said that you had opened 14 businesses, then all of them but one closed.
Yep.
Was that due to cash flow?
Yeah, so pretty much we expanded too fast. We were a franchisee and a franchisor system, which means the franchisor model. We were led to believe that hey, there are systems in place, there's procedures, there's something that we're able to scale. But as I started learning more and more now, it was like, this model will only work if you're an owner operator, which
Hmm.
means very difficult to scale because of the cash flow that it generates. Can't afford for you to put actually good trained managers that deserve a certain amount of wage, right? So at that point, if you're willing to be in one restaurant all the time, it's going to work. If you're looking to scale, there was no systems in place to do that. So at that point, that's when we really had to kind of close things off because we weren't making enough money to pay our bills.
That's crazy. So from that experience, from that failure, like how did that shape your mindset about what kind of entrepreneur you wanted to be for the next business?
Yeah, so at that point, I graduated college and I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do after I graduate? And the answer was the same thing I did before I graduated, which was get to work.
Hmm.
So I wound up finding the manager of that last restaurant that I owned, and I wound up running it as an owner operator myself. I ran it for about a year or so, and I was doing okay, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled because I was making okay money. But at the end of the day, I didn't see the scalability. And again, my mission has always been, how do I build a business that I'm not a slave to, that
Yeah.
will keep growing and keep scaling to a certain point? So I was definitely in the wrong vehicle. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I got this thing kind of running. I don't have to be here all the time. And my father, being that's kind of owner operator mentality for so many years, he would actually come in to my restaurant to eat lunch. He would get a phone call and have to rush back to work to actually put out some fires at the business. And he actually owned a truck driving school at that point. And that was one of the businesses that he had for about 20 years. So seeing this happen more and more, I said, hey, can I help you out? Can I learn the business? Because I didn't like seeing my dad go through that stress. His answer was no, focus on your business. So the second time I asked a few weeks later, hey, can I help you out? Can I learn the business? He goes, no, focus on your business. Third time I said, I didn't say anything. I just show up one morning in the office and I sit back and I start observing what's happening. And then all of a sudden I'm saying, hey, we can make this change. We can make that change. Hey, Dad, let's add this CRM system. He goes, how much is that going to cost? I said, X amount of dollars. He said, I'm not going to pay for it. I said, no problem. I paid for it out of my own pocket and made the change happen. Long story short, wound up running his business for about 3 years. And that business grew in size, doubled in size every year for 3 years, which is pretty cool with zero extra ad spend. 2.5 years in, he's coming up to me and he's saying, hey, there's a potential lawsuit coming in. I think I'm just going to shut everything down. My
Hmm.
first reaction was, what the F are you talking about?
Yeah.
Working 7 days a week. It's a good thing I'm already bald because if I wasn't, I would be pulling out my hair type of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, at that point, I'm like, what, like, why? What's going on? He goes, Jonathan, since you're so good at this business, you should open up your own. And then we'll just convert all the employees that you built and all the contracts that you built to your business.
Hmm.
I said, okay, that's fair. At that point, since I was spending so much time in the new business and operating it, my restaurant started dropping. People started stealing from me. Like, it was a big mess. So I wound
Wow.
up shutting that down and converting that into the classroom, into the sales office of the new driving school that I started.
Wow.
For the first 6 months, I had this new business that was just starting from scratch, and I was still helping my dad run his business and kind of going back and forth. In my business, I was a one-man show, and the other business that I built up is kind of running okay, but I was still kind of going back and forth. 6 months in, I'm working 7 days a week. I'm getting burnt out. I'm not making any money. I'm like, hey, I can't keep running both businesses. Is that when are you going to shut down? He goes, oh yeah, I meant to tell you. I'm not going to shut down. I go, what do you mean? Oh yeah, that lawsuit that was coming in and never really came in, and that's it. So, so I can't keep running both businesses. Like, so
Hmm.
what are we going to do? His response was, Jonathan, I never asked you to run my business. So at first I was like a gut check, right? I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? But if I take full accountability and I look back on the story, he never did. I asked twice. He said no, he didn't want my help. I
Hmm.
forced myself in there. So at that point, I was like, okay, it's not my business. I'm not entitled. Let me just go to the grindstone, started from zero again. Nobody knew my name. Nobody knew my brand. Zero employees, zero money. All the money I had left was invested into this business itself. And then I just worked my butt off until I got there. And this time I knew something different. I had the confidence because I did it once before, but also I had a much bigger vision on where we can go because I had full control of the actual business itself.
If you're following along and wondering how Jonathan went from restaurants to running a truck driving school, so are we. Stay tuned for how he pivoted into this new industry after this quick break. I find this story so interesting because you're going from a restaurant service business to a truck driving school. And mind you, for the people that are listening, you mentioned that you had just graduated from school. So you're like in your 20s, right? Running these multiple businesses. What was the need for this truck driving school, and did you feel so compelled and so passionate that you could um run this business and then scale it as well?
Well, that's the thing. Like you asked me what kind of business would I want to be in. I never had an idea what kind of business I wanted. So I just loved the game of business. The more and more I learned about it. And I believe whatever I did with a truck driving school is the same thing you could do with the restaurants, the same thing you could do with a landscaping company, an accounting firm, a car rental company. All business runs exactly the same. Am I passionate about trucks? No, I'm passionate about helping people, which is what we do. We've trained over 10,000 people. We have over 12 locations across the country. We became a franchisor. I can kind of go through all the details if you want there.
Hmm.
But it's the game of business is what actually keeps me going. So no matter what we're selling, I just love kind of growing and scaling businesses.
So tell me a little bit about your driving academy. How are you helping people? What services are you providing?
Yeah. So an average customer for that business specifically is somebody making anywhere from like $20 to $40,000 a year. They're kind of feeling stuck in their environment. They want to make more, and they know they have to reinvest and kind of get new skills that they don't have, but they don't want to go back to college or kind of go through all this debt to kind of get there. So an average one of our customers make about $20 to $40,000 a year in their current job, and they need more skills to kind of up their income level.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll invest about $4,000 to $5,000 into the actual education. We'll get them trained. We'll help them get their actual license. We'll get them tested, and they offer lifetime job placement. Coming out of school, very easy to make $55,000 to $65,000 a year. Once you have 1 to 2 years experience after that, it's going to make it very easy to make 75 to 80 and keep growing from there. Right. So we've done that over 10,000 times with many different companies. So we've done that over 10,000 times with many different students out there.
Mm-hmm.
I started as a one-man show. I was a trainer, the sales guy, the CEO, the janitor, everything that had to be done, I learned from the ground up.
Wow.
And I had this experience from this other school, so it kind of got me going. But it was just, hey, this is a new mission that I had. All my money that I ever had was invested in this. And now what can I learn? What can I do different in this vehicle that I learned from the restaurant business and all the failures that I had there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, that's when I really started to invest in people who actually were a lot more ahead in game. So at this stage, I actually started to realize where did I go wrong in my past business with the restaurants and kind of how do I scale this thing? So how do I add systems and processes with the main goal of building a business that works with or without me? Because that was always the goal there, kind of to keep scaling. So that's when I started to invest heavily in different things like business masterminds, courses, coaching. My main two mentors is probably Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been to a lot of their events, and it really helped shape the way I think. And it gave me a lot of the skills that I was missing in how to grow an actual business itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this was about 8 years ago, had this company now. Now we have probably over 60 employees on the corporate staff itself. We have 12 locations across the country that are currently open. Before the end of the year, we'll probably open up another 6 to 8 different locations. We became the first and only truck driving school franchisor in the country. So that's something that was unique to what we did as a business. We've sold over 38 territories. So out of the 12 that are open now, 3 of them are corporate locations. The rest of them are actual franchise, and we got over 30 to actually go and open up at the same time. So a lot of growth is happening, and I wasn't able to do that unless I invested in myself, unless I put in the actual work. And the cool thing about investing in yourself is you get to do all that in just 8 years, right? So I could have worked my butt off for 8 years and still not had nothing. In the restaurant business, I had that for 5 years. And after working my butt off for 5 years in the restaurant business, I was left for like $20,000. So after working 5 years in the restaurant business itself, I was left with $20,000 in my bank, and I invested all of that in the actual new truck driving school business. I could have just worked a corporate job for 5 years, and I would have had a lot more savings. So understand the only difference was the different vehicle, and I was a better business owner because I invested in myself.
I find that, first of all, I want to talk to you about scaling from one location to 11 or 12, as you mentioned, and then franchising to 38. Like, to 38 territories. Like what were the key moves that you made in order to do that?
So when you think about it, now we have 12. If you were to rewind the clock 12 months ago, I only had two. So really think about that, which means from year 0 to year 7, or to year, I guess, 6 itself, all that was just foundation. So one thing that I learned in the scaling of the restaurants was we grew too fast without the proper foundation. So that got implanted into my brain where, okay, I need to make sure that this foundation works. And I went through a process where I built the business with a certain foundation. And then I started marketing more, started getting better, started getting better awareness. And then the business grew in sales. And then I broke the system. The system broke. Then I had to
Okay.
go and dissect what part of the system is broke. Okay, now how do I fix that? Grow it again until it breaks, and grow it again till it breaks. And don't focus on opening up location 2, location 3, location 4. A lot of people would have been eager to kind of do that right off the bat. And the thing I learned was if you're in a kind of brick and mortar business, which is the business that this is, the only real reason to grow to the next location is actually if you're super bored in the first location, which means you're only spending 20% of your time there in actual operations. Everything else is spent on thinking, visioning, kind of other systems and process building type of thing. But if you're more than 20% of the actual operations, which means you can't leave for a long period of time and the business keep operating, you're not ready to scale. There's a difference between scaling multiple locations and scaling that one location that you actually do have.
Mm-hmm.
I would ultimately have more cash flow because that's the main goal of business from one location to having multiple locations, having a lot of revenue and having zero cash flow. Because that's exactly what happened in the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
It was very sexy to say I was part owner in 13 restaurants, but I was making no money and working my butt off. I made more money with one restaurant and that was it. Right.
Would you say part of the reason that you were able to have so much success was because of that $1 million that you invested in your own personal development?
Yeah. So
And
like over the 8 years, I go back and like, okay, how much did I actually learn from these people? I learned a lot. How much did I invest? And I wound up seeing these numbers, and it's over $1 million that I invested in my own personal development.
yeah.
That's after college, that's after all that stuff. But the return on that investment has been amazing.
Coming up, Jonathan teaches us how to invest in ourselves first so we can invest money back into our businesses. So, for the entrepreneurs that are listening right now, the aspiring entrepreneurs that don't have the big money to invest yet, what is sort of their first step to that they can take towards self development?
Yeah. So right now we live in a day and age where information is relatively free, right? The problem with free information is that we usually don't value it enough. So when I first started, I didn't have money to invest. So I went on YouTube and I looked at specific skills, what that I had to get good at. How do I sell better? How do I communicate better? Search YouTube, find out things like that. That's how I learned about a guy called Grant Cardone. At that point, I found out he was doing an event. And then the event, I called about the event I wanted to kind of go. It was $900. At
Mm-hmm.
this, I had like $2,000 in my bank account. And I'm like, okay, $900 is a lot of money. That doesn't include the hotel, the flight, or anything like that. So I put that stuff on a credit card, hoping and wishing. I went to the supermarket, got myself sandwiches and stuff because I wasn't spending money on lunch down there. And it was like the general admission ticket, which means I was supposed to sit all the way to the back. I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time I did this. This was so much money for me. I still took the risk for it. And I wound up kind of sneaking myself to the front, got a desk, and I started writing down everything. Because I
Wow.
was so valuable, I like was absorbing everything. Every little word that I wrote down was like worth something because it was such a stretch for me at that time. They wound up catching me on day 2. I was sitting in the wrong spot with the ticket. They put me all the way in the back. Like I didn't even have a desk to write on. So I was sitting on this chair, just kind of writing, taking notes, getting inspired. My brain's getting bigger, thinking bigger. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, this time next year, I'm going to be sitting front row. And I worked my butt off. I implemented what I learned because it was so valuable. And then I wound up spending, I think the next ticket was like $10,000 for the ticket. And that was a front row ticket that I was able to sit at. And that was just one example. Every time that I've been able to invest in myself and I actually learn something, there's two things that wound up happening in my life. So because I wound up investing in the phase where I wanted to make more money in my business, you should start seeing like your business starting to increase as long as you're investing in the right way, as long as you implement as well. And the second thing that should actually start happening, your problems should be changing.
Mm,
You're still dealing with the same problems you have today, and the same
mm.
problems is the same problems that you had last year. All that means is you're not growing. Because the one thing most people don't know is that your problems will never go away. The only time they'll go away is when you hit the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
What you should be wishing for is new problems every single time, because that means you are growing and it's time to solve new and bigger problems.
What would you say was one of your biggest takeaways from this pivotal seminar, the seminar you're speaking of right now, that you think propelled your business to where it is now?
It got me to think bigger, right? So at this point, my business was kind of starting to steam up. I had this like ego thing. Oh, yeah, I'm doing better because I was comparing it to the restaurant side of things.
Yeah.
But at that point, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of capped this thing off. And I didn't even scratch the surface. I was listening to people who were like doing 10 times the amount of volume I was doing in the business. I'm like, wait, is this even possible? So it just opened up my mind to what actually is possible in business. It kind of gave me that first insight of what does actual real business look like? What kind of numbers somebody can actually do? What kind of life can somebody live? And just got me to dream bigger.
One thing I do want to pivot, I want to talk about your content and your marketing strategy for the truck business. Yeah, the Driving Academy business that you created that I thought was so innovative and inspiring, kind of out of the box. But you built a YouTube channel in this super niche industry. So we're talking about truck driving with a YouTube channel, and it now has over 160,000 subscribers. I was looking at your page before this interview, and I saw that one of your videos has like over 1 million views on it. What was your strategy for creating content in such a unique space? I know a lot of people would have thought, okay, I have this truck academy, I have this school, if you will, and I'm going to advertise traditionally. So I might do like billboards, or I might do like television ads, or maybe social media, Instagram or TikToks. But you kind of took it a step further and created this YouTube channel where you could create longer form content, and I think that that's such an awesome strategy. I want to know how you came up with that idea.
Yeah. So, like I said, now with JM Growth Co, we kind of look at marketing into mainly three different things that happen, right? So, you need the right audience with the right message at the right delivery system. And
Hmm.
as long as you have those three things, any marketing will be able to work. A lot of people think that marketing has to be a certain way. So, at that point, I had no money to advertise. I was just starting off. So, I'm like, okay, if I put myself in my customer's shoes, how would I actually get in front of the right audience? That's the first check mark. What is the right message is the second check mark. So I'm thinking, okay, somebody who wants to get a CDL license, they're probably going to search on YouTube how to get a CDL, or how to pass the road test, or how to get my pre-trip inspection pass, which is a part of the road test, right? So I started doing all this research on YouTube, started seeing kind of what the search volumes were. And that started showing me, okay, if my ideal audience is actually doing this already, let me just add value to the marketplace, start creating videos. And then at that point, I can just get in front of them for free. And since then, we've actually had customers from pretty much every single state fly into our location. We're one of the most high volume locations in the entire country. We've actually had people from around the world give us a call because they've seen us on YouTube. All things that we have never paid for. But just because we didn't pay for it doesn't mean it was simple. Because the hard part was getting in front of the camera. I was super shy, super nervous. The first 400 videos, I sucked. But being able to still do that and be the videographer for myself, be the editor for myself, being able to do all that in the very beginning and never give up. Because a lot of people want to do this, but because consistency breaks down, the message will never be out there. So I think now on our YouTube channel, we probably have over close to 3,000 videos out there. We post every single day. I have a whole team that runs that department now. So I just have to show up, shoot a few videos one day, and pretty much I'm done with that. Everything else is on autopilot. But even that alone was just based on the simple marketing techniques. The right audience, where they at, what's the right message, and what's the right delivery system, and what's the right timing.
I think that's so smart because I worked in advertising for 8 years, and one of the things that we would always, I sold advertisements to local businesses, and I would be talking to the marketing directors, and they wouldn't have a budget, right? And like, but they would always say, I know you have to like you have to spend money to make money. But it seems like you found an alternative, which is you didn't have a marketing budget. So you went to YouTube where it's completely free, but you can also monetize your content on YouTube. So has that become has that generated revenue now that you have like all of these videos and subscribers on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, now I can call myself an official YouTuber.
You're kind of a content creator.
Yeah,
You're an
I have a whole
influencer.
plaque and everything in my office too, which
That's
is kind
sick.
of cool.
Yeah,
It generates, it's okay. I think it generates like $3,000 a month just on the YouTube organic content by itself.
but
It's
that's
nothing in
something.
comparison to the overall business itself, but it's definitely a cool thing to have.
No, that's amazing. How do you how did content creating help you scale your school and then later into other ventures?
So the understanding how to create content was super important on, okay, what does my audience actually want, right? So that content creation comes down to the messaging. And depending on what your outcome is, depending on how the message kind of plays out. And in order to kind of scale out your business, you need leverage. So leverage means uh, doing the same thing, but getting more results after that. Content is one of the ways that you can actually get a great amount of leverage for your business, which means you can shoot one YouTube video and you can have 1 million people watch it over time. I don't have to keep redoing that or talk to 1 million people. And the cool thing about YouTube as a social media platform, it's actually a search engine, which means the more things you post, the longer they stay, as long as it's good relative content that's evergreen. The older that video gets, the more people will actually watch it. Versus like a Facebook or a TikTok or Instagram, those things have a smaller shelf life where unless it's going to be viral, people really usually forget about it. So that's where I said, okay, let's invest into YouTube because long term, even though we might not get the results right now, it's not as viral. Over time, it'll actually build this whole huge audience that we can keep growing.
I love that. I want to pivot now to your business philosophy and your framework. When we were speaking over the phone, you talked about businesses come down to three buckets: marketing, sales, operations. Why those three?
So when you think about anything in business, anything that can happen, it's going to be focused on three different things. Now, why did I pick three? The human brain thinks in chunks. So they think one, two, three. After three, they think, oh, it's too many things. So if you actually simplify business, it actually gets people to make action happen, right? And when I actually look at it, I'm like, okay, what does every business need? You need leads. That's what marketing's job is. You need to be able to convert those leads into actual cash, people paying you cash. And then you need to be able to service those leads and service those customers. That's through operations. Now, the bigger you get, the more complex it kind of gets through. We have a whole diagram that we teach our students on exactly how to do this for the business side of things. And if you just keep that focus on, okay, if I have a problem, now what bucket do I go into? Once you understand, okay, this problem is a marketing bucket problem, now you can actually just put your marketing hat on, and it's so much easier to solve that problem instead of kind of being diversified all over the place.
I love that. And now, moving on to your other ventures, you're now teaching businesses how they can grow and scale their businesses using these three buckets. Can you give an example of a simple system or a KPI that any small business owner should like start tracking today?
Yeah. So most people actually don't track anything. And if you were to ask an average business owner, just like my father for many, many years, it would be, hey, are you making money? And they'd be like, I think so. And I'd be like, how do you not know? Well, if my bank account's going up, I'm making money. If my bank account's going down, I'm losing money.
Mm-hmm.
And all that means is that you're such an operator and you don't really know what to measure, right? It's been scientifically proven where the more you measure something, the better results you'll get. So as an example, I'll give you two examples. If you just want to make more money, all I ask you to do is two things. Check your bank account first thing in the morning, every single day. Whatever you bring more attention to is what the universe, if you call it, is going to bring more attention to yourself because now you're actually telling your brain what's important. And then two, make sure your wallet, or if you're holding cash, is organized. If you keep your money organized, you're respecting money, money's going to respect you. On an opposite spectrum for health, it's been scientifically proven where if somebody wants to lose weight, if all they do is actually check the scale every single day, they're measuring multiple times and change nothing else, you will actually start losing weight just because you're measuring it more often.
Mm.
So when you fully understand that, now you have to say, okay, what is important to measure? And at the most basic, how many leads am I getting? What's my conversion ratio, which means leads divided by total students, right? Or in many people's case, total customers, right? And then what is the revenue and expenses at the most basic? You should have a full understanding of what happens with those numbers. And ideally, you want to be able to track those numbers daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, then yearly.
When we return, Jonathan takes us through mindset and goal setting.
The reason why a lot of New Year's resolutions never work is because it's a measuring problem.
Mm.
All people do is measure once a year. Now, if you measure once a month, you're going to have bad months. If you measure once a week, you're going to have bad weeks, but not bad months. If you measure once a day, now you'll never have a bad year.
And so these are all things that people can learn by starting your entry-level program or your one-on-one coaching, correct?
Yeah, so we have an entry-level program. It's $100. We do it once a week. It's a live business event, about 3 hours. We'll kind of give you an overview of the business itself. It's called Business Growth Made Simple event. And we can kind of deep dive into a lot of the different concepts of how to view your business and how to simplify it. A lot of people overcomplicate it. And a lot of people kind of fall into this spectrum of, but my business is different. I challenge everybody who's listening to this to think, if your business is different, please give us a call. Like, I will show you how every business has these 3 buckets. You need leads, you need to sell them, and then you need to be able to operate your business itself.
One of the things that I really loved about our conversation when we spoke earlier before this interview, we were talking about mindset and big goals, and you shared this 3-step process, and it was like, get clear on what you want, know how you want it, and then figure out how. Why do you think most people get stuck on that how piece?
Yeah, so pretty much to give people context, I'm going to give you guys a secret to get anything you want in life. And this is exactly what you just said. Step number 1 is be super clear on what you want, right? A lot of people actually are not clear on what they want, and they just wind up reacting to the situations that they live on a day-to-day basis. And when you do that, you fail to actually create the future that you want. And going to these events and understanding how big people actually think and having that kind of imagination from the beginning, there's 0 limitations. I've showed you many different examples where you can have 0 money, 0 experience, and still be able to be successful. But that only works if that's actually what you want. If you don't want to be successful, then you're not going to be. And if what you want is more money, you're wrong, because I can give you $1 and that's more money. So what you want is one piece, but be clear on what you want. How much more money do you want to make? And that's why we set up our business growth, and that's why we set up our Jam Growth Co. to kind of give people 3 different ideas of what they want. Hey, first level, let's get you to $1 million in sales. Let's be super clear. Second level, let's get you to $1 million in profit. And then third level, let's continue to scale to a specific scale that you want, or let's help you sell your business if that's ultimately what you want to do. I've been able to do all those things multiple times. But the first step is being clear. Second step is understanding why you want to do it. Because if the why is not strong, when shit hits the fan, like it has for me many times, when people start stealing you from your business, when things are not going your way, when you think that you're not going to be able to make rent or anything like that, if that why is not strong, you're going to give up. And it's not going to keep you pushing. If you look at any of the big guys out there who's ever made it big in business, guys or girls, there's always been moments out there where they thought they were going to lose it all. And that's where we started off by saying, don't spread all your eggs in many different baskets. If you focus on one thing and you're super clear on it, it gives you no way out and it helps you push through.
I love that.
And if you're able to really focus on those 2 things, then the how will really take care of itself. An example that I do is, like, I had no money. I wanted to market people. So I use YouTube. If YouTube didn't work, I'd find a different avenue. And I've tried many different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. So I never give up till I go.
Do you have any success stories of a business that you've helped grow and scale?
Yeah. So since I've always loved business, I have a few friends and family members who are kind of in business for themselves. And before I started this business, I said, okay, let's get some proof of concept to make sure I'm not just talking out my butt. So I have one friend who actually is part owners in this big business. They do about $21 million in revenue, a car rental business. Super high level, again, super sexy type of numbers. But after going through their finances, they wound up losing $1 million last year. So imagine making 22, $21 million in revenue and losing $1 million. Not fun at all.
Wow. Mm-mm.
I started working with him and after 6 months, we got them to be able to make $4 million in profit just by adding the simple systems in a very complex big business.
Mm.
Had another buddy of mine, a tax accounting firm, starting from zero. It's kind of helped them understand what marketing actually is, what sales look like, how to start tracking things like that. He wound up hitting his first $1 million a year last year. He wound up hitting his first $1 million a year last year. And to kind of give you guys perspective, do you know how many businesses actually make over $1 million in sales?
No,
If you were to guess, what percentage would you say?
maybe like 5%.
Yeah. So it's actually 4% of businesses
Oh,
make over $1 million in sales. So a lot of people like see this stuff. Oh, this guy's a billionaire. That guy's a billionaire. If you just get your business to over $1 million in sales, you're in the top 4% of all businesses in the country. There's
that's
30
crazy.
million businesses in the country. And most people are going to be like, well, if there's only 4%, then it's a luck thing, right? No.
Mhm.
Most people who understand what needs to happen, I believe any business can get there.
I feel like people that are listening are perking up because they're like, I have this great idea. I would love to learn how I can make over $1 million. Like, how long is your program, and like how soon do you foresee, if someone follows all the steps that you're teaching them in this program, like what could the result look like for them?
Pretty much, I'm the kind of guy where I'm never going to tell somebody how they should live their life, right? So, as an example, if somebody wants to be home every single day at 5 o'clock, drink a beer and watch the news and they're happy, great. You're living life. You won. But if somebody is like me and always wants to kind of keep pushing, I'm the guy for you as well, because I'm going to show you how to kind of get there, right? So, but we're keeping it simple. And if you really think about businesses, it's only three different things. Now you're only measuring three different departments, which makes scaling so much more simple as well. So we have different levels of kind of how we help businesses out. First, we have like this learn a little bit, kind of like this teaser, understanding how we do. Are we a good fit? Do we understand the right philosophy? Next level, we have like online courses where you can kind of do it yourself. And I've kind of done it all. So I've been able to see, okay, what works, what doesn't work with some of these bigger people who've been doing it. And mainly the big thing is implementation. I
Hmm.
know a lot of people who invest a lot of money into personal development, and I talk to them a year later, nothing changed. 2 years
Hmm.
later, nothing changed. 5 years later, they're still the same person, the same problems because they never implement it. So something that we actually do differently is if you wanted a done with you system, we actually have something called the Business Growth Lab, where we'll give you the actual blueprint of exactly what you need to do in your specific business, depending on what level you want to get to. But we're going to assign you a business coach, and you're going to have a meeting with that individual every single week. And we're going to hold you accountable. We're going to say, okay, this is your job. This is my job. This is your job. This is my job. And we're going to work together to make sure that you're actually moving the needle correctly for your job.
Where can listeners learn more and connect with your coaching programs?
So you can go to our website, jmgrowthco.com, or you can search me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Jonathan Marks Growth.
I love that. What's been the hardest? I'm curious. What's been the hardest lesson you've learned as an entrepreneur?
The hardest lesson I've learned is you can't help everybody. So there's been many employees that screwed me over after I've bent over backwards, helped them pay their rents, given them advances, things like that. And even after all that, they wind up screwing you over. So what I wind up learning to kind of help me out, because a lot of people say business would be a lot more fun if there was no customers and no employees, right?
Hmm.
But unfortunately, you can't really live in that world. So you have to understand how to play with it. So the mindset trick that I learned, and I learned this from Tony Robbins, was if I was that person in that person's shoes, had that person's past, was telling the stories that that person told, had that person's experiences, had that person's state and that person's emotions at that moment, I would most likely do the same exact thing that person did. And when you really understand it from that point of view, now you don't really get upset with anybody
Mm.
because they're doing the best that they can, whether it's survival or whether however they're programmed, that's based on what they know. If they knew better, they would have done better. But unfortunately, that people do what they know.
You've had failures throughout your career, and was there ever a moment when you considered giving up, and like how did you pull through?
Yeah. So many different times. There was times where I tried to open up my second location, and it was hurdle after hurdle, and I was like, "Oh my God, God doesn't want me to expand here. There's something wrong with this plot. There's like some juju type of thing," and just got back to being clear on what I wanted. So on those moments, something that keeps me on track all the time, and I learned this lesson from Grant Cardone, is writing down my goals every day, twice a day. So I'll give you a quick tip on this. This actually changed my entire life. So there's a part of our brain called the RAS, reticular activating system. And this part of your brain only has one job, and that job is to tell you what is important to you. So as an example, if you guys ever bought a car, before you bought that car, you never saw that car anywhere around. But after you bought that car, everyone seems to have the same car. Whereas
Yes.
another example, if you're in a busy restaurant and you like business or finance or like design or travel or anything like that, and all of a sudden somebody starts talking four tables down about the Jets game and you're a Jets fan or something, all of a sudden you're going to hear that entire conversation. How is that even possible? Because that's the job of the RAS.
Mm-hmm.
The RAS job is to filter out everything that's happening around you. Because when you think about it, a lot of things happen at any given time
Mm-hmm.
and help focus on truly what's important. So a lot of people talk about like the law of attraction, and I believe in that, but this is actually the science behind it. So things that are always happening in the universe already, once you tell your brain what's important, they're going to start seeing, you're going to start seeing it that's been already there. So as an example, back in 2018, I started listening to this and I said, okay, let's actually get clear on this. What do I want? Started writing down my goals. One of the goals was I made $1 million in sales in 2018. Another goal, I owned an Aston Martin. That's always been my dream car. I
Yeah.
watched James Bond growing up. I'm like, this is the guy I want to be, right?
Yeah.
I wrote down a few other goals. But the thing you have to understand about these goals are they have to be big enough to scare you. When I was writing down these goals, I had zero idea how I was going to do it. And it was scary as hell because I felt like I was lying to myself. I had no idea how I was going to make $1 million in sales. I had no idea how I was going to be able to afford an Aston Martin, but I learned it. And for the first 2 to 3 months, it was super uncomfortable just for me to write down this piece of information on a piece of paper twice a day. But long story short, I started that in January. By that September, I owned an Aston Martin.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't spend a lot of money. I wound up finding a guy who's going through a divorce, and I wound up buying something for like $35,000. Beautiful vehicle. I love the car. Nothing wrong with it at all. But if I wasn't looking for it, if my RAS system wasn't programmed to it, I would have never have found it.
It's so funny that you mentioned that because it's the power of visualization. I do that as well. And sometimes, I mean, I've always been somebody that was like, had a vision board or wrote things down constantly. And then you almost get into this mode where you're just like kind of going through life. And then you all of a sudden have the Aston Martin. All of a sudden you made $1 million in your business and you didn't even realize how you got there. It's just because you constantly saw it. So you like it was going to happen regardless. And so I feel like that's such a good piece of advice for the people that are listening to just keep going, but also like have that visual there. So it's just that constant reminder and that RAS part of your brain that you're speaking towards. As a final thought though, if you could leave entrepreneurs with one mindset shift, what that could change how they run their businesses, what would it be?
Get married to the outcome, not to the process.
What does that
So
mean?
what do I mean by that? So in the business, you want to make X amount of dollars. That's your outcome. Let's kind of give you a little bit more of a better illustration. Right now, I'm located in New Jersey. If my outcome was to go to California, that's my outcome. In business, that could be $1 million. In your work, in your finances, that could be have $1 million net worth. In your health, that could be weigh X amount of pounds and be healthy. Whatever that number is, or whatever that outcome is. Now, but if this outcome in this example, I want to go to California, and now the easiest thing in my mind is, okay, I want to take a plane from New Jersey to California. I said, okay, no problem, I'll do that. But all of a sudden the plane stops and gets canceled. So what do? All of a sudden now, because the plane is not working, I'll never get to my outcome? No. I'm willing to bet that there's 10 other things that you can actually do to get from New Jersey to California. I'll give you a few. You can drive a car. You can get on a bus. You can get on a train. You can get out on a boat. You can take a hot air balloon. You can take a horse. You can take a motorcycle. You can take a bike. You can take a rocket ship, right? You can walk. You can run. That's just the process of how to get to your outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So get super clear on your outcome and get married to the outcome itself, and we'll figure out the process on how to get there.
I love that. Jonathan Marks, this has been amazing. I've learned so much here. I know that everybody listening is going to walk away with some really good tips and hopefully reach out to you to join one of your courses. Before I let you go, I want to know if you have anything else that you would like to add that I haven't asked you already.
No, I think you did a great job. You're a great interviewer. You keep great energy the whole time. Your audience is very lucky to have somebody like you to kind of keep inspiring them and keep educating them. So keep doing the right job. No problem. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this week's episode of A Bright Idea Podcast. Today's guest was Jonathan Marks, founder of CDL Academy. If your business is ready to reach Jonathan's 3 levels of success, you can sign up for one of his courses by going to his website at jmgrowthco.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring on more stories like Jonathan's. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at A Bright Idea Podcast for updates, and if there's a topic or a guest you'd like to hear from next, drop us a message. If you would like to support our show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at A Bright Idea Podcast. This episode was edited by Chris Kramer, and all social media was handled by my social media manager, Shekinah Henderson. Until next time, I'm Amber Key.